The man who invented one of the most famous ideas in psychology spent 50 years believing the exact opposite of the truth. His name is Martin Seligman, and in 1967 he thought he had proven that giving up is something you learn. That single idea reshaped how the world treats depression, motivation, and failure. Then, in 2016, decades later, he stood up and admitted he had it backwards the whole time. By the end of this, you are going to understand why that reversal is the most important thing anyone has ever told you about your own discipline. Go back to 1967, a lab at the University of Pennsylvania. Seligman and a researcher named Steven Maier were running an experiment on dogs, and it was not gentle. They split the animals into 3 groups, and that design is the whole reason the study still matters. 2 of the groups got the same mild electric shocks, while the third got none at all as a clean baseline. One shocked group could stop the pain by pressing a panel with its nose. The other could do nothing. The shocks came and went no matter what they did. And those 2 groups were wired together, so each helpless dog got the identical jolt at the identical instant as its partner that had the panel. Same pain, same duration, one difference: control. Through that entire first phase, the dogs were held in a harness, so the single variable in their world was whether the panel did anything. Then came the second phase, and this is where it gets uncomfortable. Every dog was placed in a simple box with a low barrier down the middle. On one side, the floor was electrified. On the other side, it was safe, and the barrier was low enough to step over easily. The dogs that had been able to stop the shocks earlier figured it out fast. They jumped the barrier and escaped. But the dogs that had been helpless before just lay down and took it. Roughly 2/3 of the once helpless dogs never jumped at all, while almost every dog from the other groups was over the barrier in seconds. Escape was right there, one small step away, and they did not even try. Seligman looked at that and concluded the dogs had learned that nothing they did mattered. He called it learned helplessness, and the phrase spread like fire. The logic was seductive because you have felt it yourself. You fail enough times, and something in you stops reaching for the door. Seligman argued that this was the engine of human depression. Life knocks you down, you learn that your actions are useless, and you quit trying. By 1978, he and 2 colleagues had sharpened it into a theory of explanatory style, the private habit of how you read your own setbacks. The people most at risk, they argued, were the ones who blamed failure on causes that were permanent, personal, and everywhere at once. It became one of the most cited theories in the entire history of psychology. It shaped therapy, it shaped how doctors understood hopelessness, it shaped how we talk about motivation. It climbed out of the clinic and into schools, hospitals, and offices, the ready explanation for anyone who had stopped trying. The same core idea eventually carried Seligman to the presidency of the American Psychological Association and the launch of an entire field called positive psychology. The takeaway everyone absorbed was simple and grim. Helplessness is a lesson, and once life teaches it to you, you carry it. That idea sat at the center of psychology for almost half a century. Textbooks taught it, therapists built on it, and millions of people used it to explain why they had stopped fighting. And here is the part that should make you sit up. The core of that story, the part everyone believed, was wrong. The problem came from the brain itself. When Seligman built his theory in the 60s, nobody could look inside a living brain during stress. They saw the behavior, the dog lying down, and they guessed at the cause. Over the following decades, the tools got sharper, and Maier kept digging into the neuroscience. One old result had never fit. Dogs given control first were somehow immunized, shrugging off later helplessness as if they had been vaccinated against it. He started tracing what actually happens inside the brain during inescapable stress. Deep in the brainstem, there is a region called the dorsal raphe nucleus. It pumps out serotonin, and when it fires hard, it triggers passivity, shutdown, and fear. Here is what the data showed, and it did not match the theory. Prolonged stress switches that shutdown region on automatically, all by itself. The animals were not learning to be passive. The passivity was the default. It fired the moment the stress dragged on, no lesson required. The shutdown showed up too fast and too reliably to be a lesson slowly absorbed. It behaved like a reflex, not a memory. And when researchers chemically quieted that brainstem region, Even the helpless animal started escaping again, proof it was a switch, not a scar. So, if helplessness is not the thing that gets learned, then what does the brain actually learn? That question forced one of the most respected scientists alive to tear down his own life's work. In 2016, Maier and Seligman published a paper with a title that sounds almost like a confession. It was called Learned Helplessness at 50: Insights from Neuroscience. In it, they formally reversed the meaning of the entire experiment. Passivity in the face of stress is not learned, they wrote. It is the brain's built-in default. It is the factory setting, hardwired, waiting in every one of us. What the brain actually learns is the opposite. It learns control. There is a region behind your forehead called the ventromedial prefrontal cortex. That region works like a detector, constantly scanning for a single fact, whether your own actions can change what happens to you. When it detects that you have power over a stressor, it reaches down and slams the brakes on that shutdown circuit. It literally inhibits the passivity response and keeps you in the fight. Look again at the 1967 dogs with fresh eyes. The helpless group did not learn to quit. Quitting was the default they were never pulled out of. The dogs with control learned that their actions had power and that learning protected them later. It even explains the immunized dogs. An early taste of control had wired that brake long before the inescapable stress ever arrived. Maier and Seligman named this the hope circuit. Their conclusion was that hope is not a mood, it is a trainable neural skill. The best defense against helplessness is a brain that has learned over and over that what you do matters. Now stop and let that land on your own life, because this is where it gets personal. For 50 years, the story told you that if you feel like quitting, life taught you that, and you are stuck with the lesson. The truth is the reverse, and it is brutal and freeing at the same time. Feeling like giving up is not proof that you are broken, it is your default hardware doing exactly what it evolved to do. When you are overwhelmed and something in you wants to lie down, that is the dorsal raphe firing, not a verdict on your character. So stop treating the urge to quit as the truth. It is just the factory setting talking. But do not get comfortable, because the flip side is where the discipline lives. If control is the thing that gets learned, then agency is a skill, and skills are built with reps. Every time you take an action that changes your situation, you are training that prefrontal circuit. You are teaching your brain, in a language older than words, that your effort has power. This is why small wins matter more than motivational speeches. This also turns the old advice inside out. You do not talk yourself into optimism. You install it with evidence your brain cannot argue with. You do not think your way out of helplessness. You act your way out, one controllable move at a time. Make the bed, send the email, do the one rep you swore you were too tired for. None of that is trivial. Each one is a deposit in the circuit that keeps you off the floor. And this is the part the tough truth demands. You have to seek out challenges you can actually influence. Comfort trains nothing, and constant unwinnable stress trains the default. You want the middle, hard things where your actions clearly move the needle, over and over. And every controllable win you bank now is immunization, a brake wired in early so the next crisis cannot drop you as easily. That is how you wire hope, not by feeling it, by earning it in reps until your brain expects to win. So here is where the open loop closes. Seligman spent 50 years thinking helplessness was the lesson, when helplessness was only ever the starting point. The real lesson, the one you get to choose, is control. Your brain ships from the factory ready to quit, and every disciplined action you take overrides that code. So stop waiting to feel capable and go collect the evidence that you already are. If this rewired how you see your own quitting, subscribe, and let's keep training the circuit that actually keeps you in the fight. Now get up, pick one thing you can control, and go prove it.